So this exhibition in Kunsthalle is a continuation of our long collaboration with Želimir Žilnik that has been going on for over a decade now. We showed some of his short films from the 60s and 70s in several exhibitions, like Really Useful Knowledge in Reina Sofia, in a screening program that we did for Šarša Biennial, and we have all been admirers of his practice for a really, really long time. And we first exhibition that we did with him was at invitation of Editrus Media House in Oldenburg, where we curated his solo exhibition focusing on his career over the years. And this is the exhibition that was then in a smaller scale repeated in Gallery Nova in Zagreb. And on the occasion of this exhibition in Oldenburg, we also published the book.
The concept of shadow citizens brings to the forth issues related to the minorities, being migrants, women, workers. And this is the topic that is recurring through Žilnik works throughout 5 decades. And when we use the concept of shadow citizen, we actually stressed out a very important feature in his documentary and artistic practice, and this is giving the voice to the people who are on the margins and put them in the middle, and also giving them platform to form and to formulate their own ideas and views on the world issues.
This aspect of shadow citizens, it's also something to do with our view on the history of the place where Žilnik and us is coming from, this place being Yugoslavia, and what can be learned from its fate, let's say. What can we take for the future from the history of socialism that was harshly and violently dismantled and suppressed in the 90s. And for us it's very important to open this history for future generations. And Žilnik's films in many ways really deal with specificities of Yugoslav history, in terms of specificities, in terms of when we look at it within the Cold War, when there was this idea there is liberal West and totalitarian East, and Yugoslavia was kind of exception, and it really was an exception, though this dichotomy is anyhow oversimplified. And Žilnik really, his position, his political engagement and his filmmaking really make very important claims on what does it mean to, when we talk about dissident culture, how oversimplified it is to reduce criticism of the socialist regime to the position of dissidency. How do we assess and understand the notion of socialist modernity? What is its interaction to the international modernity? And what are the forces that can bring those emancipatory strategies and emancipatory ideas that can bring them into the future as well?
It was a big challenge how to show Žilnik's film practice, because in many ways, you know, the films, they stand for themselves. What we want people the most, of course, is to see the films. But we did look through the exhibitions to find different ways how to stress some of the subjects, and we are also offering different paths through the practice, I would say. So something that was very important was to really highlight what a committed and very equal relationship Žilnik has with the characters. So this is why we tried to produce different sections where you can really see the wide range of shadow citizens that Žilnik really talks with, and also in parallel, both with the material from the shooting on locations and also Žilnik's quotes, we tried to also stress in which way his position as a director is not as someone who really wants to be above them in any way or feels, you know, kind of better or more qualified to say a story, to talk about something, but he really is building spaces of equality where he is kind of talking to the protagonists in his movies, always with complete, you know, kind of equality and dedication in setting the circumstances for their stories to be heard.
What is really important for us is it's a historical exhibition in a way. Žilnik has been working since 1968 and producing films, but it's also a very, very contemporary exhibition. What you can see by watching his films, how prescient they are, how important they are for the current moment, how the topics that he opened in the 60s and in the 70s when he was working in Germany and made his first film with the migrants before people were doing it, are very, very kind of telling about the situation that is happening now, how he predicted the way that the development both in Yugoslavia and in the capitalist West will unfold. This is particularly important for us, as Nataša was mentioning, in relationship to Yugoslavia, the way how his films very often predicted the way the conflicts will unfold and how the transition toward capitalism actually happened. So he is also chroniquer of the times and of what was happening to the world since he started doing films.
But what is really very inspiring for us is his strong artistic and political integrity and how it evolved over the decades, but how it also always kept its core, which is really about caring for people, working with people. It's really dismantling the idea of representation and doing it through the film medium and also the way how he's doing it, so it's not just the product that is in the end produced, but the way the processes are enacted. It's really very inspiring for us. And speaking about these processes, we can maybe mention the film that was commissioned for the version of the exhibition we did in Oldenburg 2 years ago. It's called Among the People. Then he made a film in which he talks to a number of his protagonists who were taking part in many of his movies, and he discusses them years later with them, what it meant for them also to work on the films with him.
To encourage the viewers a little bit, we are also aware that it's not easy to encounter an exhibition when you know there are like 30 films in it. So we did try to build, let's say, also different kind of time levels on which you can see the exhibition. So on the fences, which are kind of I would say, structure or tool for us to produce both atmosphere but also to form some sections in the exhibition, Žilnik generously allowed us to take excerpts from films. So this means that for many of the films, they're really 2 to 3 minute clips where you can kind of get a sense of some of the things we thought was important to kind of highlight in certain movies. And then if you have, let's say, little time, this is also a way to kind of really have a walk through the exhibition, which doesn't last long. There is then also a layer of shorts. This was something which was very much connected to Žilnik's beginnings in films, also something he continued doing both through 60s and half 70s. And these are the projections of 9 films, which mostly last between 10 to 12 minutes. So that's also something which is not so demanding. And then in hope that you kind of get really interested, because I personally think that nobody sees only one Žilnik movie, you always want to see more. There are 2 projection rooms. One of them is, let's say, a tiny retrospective, so it's a choice of 6 films concentrated on strong women figures. And then the other room is a room of his TV production, which is also a very remarkable part of his body of work, where he was working in the 80s for the state television, and he was really producing very experimental, very interesting docudrama there. So there is also 7 films there, which can be seen, and they are screened once a day. And we are, of course, aware that this is time demanding, so we are offering a ticket that if you once buy it, you can come back to the exhibition as many times as you want. So we also hope that people will choose maybe some films that they want to come back to, and that it will kind of open up space for, let's say, more committed and longer viewing through the months that the exhibition is open.
So this exhibition, Shadow Citizens at Kunsthalle, it offers a comprehensive and extensive overview to Žilnik practice. And apart from that, there are also 2 specially curated sections. We invited Anna Janevski to curate the section that actually offers more context to the very beginning of Žilnik practice. So Anna Janevski curated a special section that offers insight into lively amateur film production that Žilnik was also part of back in the 60s. which offers fantastic overview and also documentation and some archival materials. And Yuri Nadan curated, especially dedicated to Želimir Žilnik, film essay that is also available as part of the exhibition.
Želimir made his last feature film here in Vienna. It's called The Most Beautiful Country in the World. He made it with several migrant communities. It was kind of a follow-up to the film called Logbook Serbistan that he did during the migrant wave, following the people crossing the Serbia to get to European Union. And he was curious to see what happened to the people once they were here. So he filmed The Most Beautiful Country in the World in 2018, 3 years later, working with various migrant communities, talking with people who are here, looking into ways in which they settled, in which they are making living in Vienna. An important part in the film is also played by the migrant choir 29th November, which was also part of the opening of our first show. And we are very happy that this film and also Žilnik practice in general talks very much to the very large migrant community in Vienna, and we hope that they will also be interested to come and see the exhibition.